Hey, this is Mike Zwick. I am with my friend Terry Bowman. Is that right?
Barlow.
I got the B right. Terry Barlow, and he's actually the author of several books. One of the books that he wrote is this one right here, and it's Hell to Heaven. And what does it say? Our Days in Morocco. A true story, and it's by Fred Zola, Zola, and Terry Barlow, Barlow. And Terry, you did not necessarily grow up as a Christian. You grew up in a very minimal Catholic background. Is that right?
Nominal Catholic, yeah. Which my mother encouraged, made sure I went to church went to Mass every Sunday, and also in the summers went to confirmation class, Holy Communion class, so I did have that background. And I remember one of the nuns saying, you have potential to be a priest.
That's it. That's
I am
it.
a priest.
That's
So
it. That's it. That's it. That's it. And so you have potential to be a priest, but you said in your early 20s you met some folks. Was it from YWAM?
Yes, in my early 20s, I was traveling in Europe. I had earned money to travel working as a census enumerator in San Francisco. I went on from there to Greece and traveled around through North Africa, ended up in Spain as Malaga, Andalusia, Spain, the south of Spain. And it was there that I met some missionaries, some American missionaries with the Gospel Missionary Union. And they began to talk to me about something called grace.
That's it.
That it wasn't about trying to be good, all the good works and good deeds, but there was something that salvation was something I couldn't earn. I had to receive it as a gift. That was completely new to me.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And so you started to look into this thing, and you said one day it wasn't somebody who pressured you into it. You were actually sitting by yourself and you gave your life to the Lord. Is that right?
That's right. I just felt it was time to surrender to the Lord, to yield my life to Him. I felt like I need to give Him a chance. I saw the fruit of my own handling of my own life and my own piloting of my own life. I saw the disaster that was, and I thought, Lord, I want to give you a chance. And see if you can lead me out of this mess that I've made of myself.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I think it all kind of takes us getting to that point of where we realize that we're depraved. And that we are nothing without Christ. We're dirty, filthy, rotten sinners. But that through what Jesus Christ did on the cross, He paid the ultimate price for our sin. And that if we just surrender our lives to Jesus, we turn away from our sin, we look to Him. And I'm not saying that it happens overnight, that we turn from an ain't to a saint overnight, although He does save us immediately. But then after a while, after we get to know Him more, then He begins to sanctify us. He begins to clean us up. But then we also have our part as well, Terry.
That's right. And we learn to walk by faith. We learn to look at ourselves differently through His eyes, look at others through His eyes. We don't see by the flesh so much as we learn to see by the Spirit. So that was what was occurring there. And as part of my discipleship, I learned about Youth with a Mission, an organization that was functioning very nearby in the north of Africa in Morocco. And they had a training center called the Hope House, which was functioning in Tangier, of one of the larger cities of Morocco. So that's where I went. It wasn't very far from there. I went down initially for a summer to a Bible camp. But then I met the staff down there. They invited me to stay on, and I became part of their outreach, and we were outreaching to those who were world travelers who may have gotten into some kind of trouble. And that was the occasion for this book, From Hell to Heaven, where we met someone who was just that, a world traveler like myself, but had overdosed in drugs, ended up in a insane asylum in Morocco. And
hold on, you overdosed on drugs?
no, it was
Okay.
my friend, the co-author of this book.
Okay.
But in general, I had also, because before I had accepted Christ through those missionaries, I had a condition where I couldn't even lift my finger to my face to feed myself without shaking and tremoring, and I was ashamed of that, and I brought that to the light with the missionaries, with one in particular, and that's when he put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Terry, you've told me something very strange." He said, "Terry, I'm going to do something which may seem strange to you, but hold on, hang in there." And he put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, "In the name of Jesus, I command this demon of fear to leave this young man and to return to its divinely appointed place." And I didn't feel anything dramatic at the moment, but from that moment on, I got progressively more free from that oppression that made me feel like less than a human being, made me feel like an animal that had to eat off in a dark corner because he was ashamed of not even being able to lift his hand to his mouth without that shaking and that tremor. And that was a result of a lot of drug use. I'm convinced that's how that came about.
Well, Hell to Heaven, Our Days in Morocco, a True Story, and it's Fred Zola and Terry Barlow. What is the premise of the book?
The premise of the book is that God can turn a life completely around, that he has the power to completely change someone that was so bound up by drugs and darkness, and turn that person around and make them a force for God in his kingdom. Just as deeply as they were embedded in the drug culture, he can take them just as high and reveal to them the culture of God's family and God's kingdom, and make them a force, make them a flaming evangelist in my case and also Fred's case. Because after Fred was transformed, he went around Morocco to these tourist camps where people would spend a few days at a time in their campers and conduct services, and people heard the gospel. People couldn't deny the miraculous which was right in front of them.
And God is a miracle working God these days, man. And you said you had actually received some inner healing. Is that right?
Yes, true. Many years later, I began to realize that I had a whole host of memories that would recur, that would come back and visit me, and that they were not yet processed enough to be healed. And the way I could tell was that they actually jabbed me almost with a physical pain. Just to think of certain experiences would jab me, and my emotions out. I would just say, "Ouch!" In my spirit, I'd just say, "Ouch!" I don't even want to think about that. I don't want to go there. But he was bringing me there, and my wife, by that time, who was my best friend, she was my confidant. And I realized I had to bring these things that I was ashamed of to the light, because I learned that Christ's blood washes us in the light as we bring things to the light. I knew I was forgiven for these experiences, these things I had done, but I still carried the shame of those experiences. And he wanted to wash away that shame with his blood as I brought things to the light, honestly confessing things that I had participated in, things that I had done, and in an environment where I could trust the listener, in this case my wife, my best friend. Over 6 months, these memories